I want to start by asking you to raise your hands if you believe networking is really important for success. Keep your hands up if you know what you are trying to achieve through networking. 95% of people say networking is vital for career success, and 85% of jobs are filled through networking. 65% of new B2B business is driven by referrals. So many professionals agree that networking is massively important, but do we do it effectively? Have you ever been to a networking event where you feel like everyone's a used car salesman? Or you feel even worse, like you're a used car salesman? Hey, want to trade cards? Networking without purpose can feel fake or even dirty. Can really only maintain meaningful relationships with about a maximum of 150 people. So I want to break down for you effective networking.
In this episode, we have something special, a live mini-masterclass in effective networking that we recently presented at an actual Business Builders event. It not only provides practical information in how to network effectively, but more importantly, discusses the importance of the mindset that you go into your networking with to get more effective outcomes from your efforts.
Welcome to Business Builders. We are your hosts. I am Brenton Galland.
And I'm Ron Tomlin.
And in the mini masterclass that you're about to see, you're going to hear a lot about the methodology and the mindset that drive our networking activities, because so much of the current teaching that's out there is simply about tactics.
I've heard so much about the way to get away from difficult people, how to work a room, how to get your business card into other people's hands. All great techniques, but at the end of the day, it's the mindset you go into networking that drives your genuineness, your curiosity, and therefore your effectiveness in networking.
Yeah, 100%. So you're going to hear a lot of information in this mini masterclass, and it's going to be quick fire because there's a lot of ground to cover. So obviously, if you need to, rewind things and listen to things again. But at the end of the presentation, Ron and I are going to give you some quick takeaways and where to find other information that backs up what's being talked about in the mini masterclass.
So without further ado, let's cut to the mini masterclass.
Thank you, Ron. Now, a couple of things. If you can't see the screen, don't stress too much. I'm going to read it out. I've got a lot of slides here. They're mostly for me because this is from a 3-hour masterclass that I do that I'm trying to do in 25 minutes. So I'll try and be real quick. So firstly, I want to start by asking you to raise your hands if you believe that networking is really important for success. And keep your hands up. So we've got pretty much everyone. So about 100% of the room, keep your hands up. Next question, put your hands down if you don't agree with this, but keep your hands up if you know what you are trying to achieve through networking. Everyone knows? No, a few hands went down. So we've probably got about 90% of hands still up. Keep your hands up. Last question, who's actually got a written plan for networking? Is that your hand, Tony? Yes. So the one person who argued with me earlier about this has a written plan, 2 hands. So that's a really interesting indication, isn't it? Because so many professionals agree that networking is massively important, but the question is, do we do it effectively? I want to hit you with some quick fire stats. Now, this is from Zipper, which is basically the Seek in America. It's an employment platform. They say from a study, 95% of people say networking is vital for career success. LinkedIn, 79% believe face-to-face networking is key to building strong relationships. LinkedIn again, 85% of jobs are filled through networking. Where's our recruiters in the room? Is that true? We won't answer that. 70% of professionals, Forbes, were hired at a company where they had a personal connection. 65% of new B2B business is driven by referrals. I actually probably think it's higher, but there you go. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. Decision makers are 5 times more likely to take a meeting with a warm introduction. Business owners with strong professional networks grow their businesses 2 times faster than those with weak networks. Want to grow your business 2 times faster? 78% of startups say networking was crucial in securing funding. 90% of executives say networking helped them stay ahead of the industry trends. You're getting the picture. 50% of companies with strong professional networks recover 50% faster after economic downturns. Now, our hands were all up and we all said that networking is really important. The stats just solidify that, but most people don't really do it effectively. So a few more stats. 41% of people want to network more but don't make the time. 28% of mid-level managers admit they engage their network only as needed when they're seeking a job. Hey, I've been made redundant. Or when they need help. This is a study from a college called INSEAD, which is based in Europe. And they came out with this overall feeling that networking without purpose can feel fake or even dirty. Have you ever been to a networking event where you feel like everyone's a used car salesman? Or you feel even worse, like you're a used car salesman? Hey, want to trade cards? I've done it, and I've gone away thinking, what was I thinking? 48% 48% stay in touch with their network regularly. 25% of professionals don't network at all. You get the picture. So I want to break down for you effective networking. I don't want to talk today about tactics for networking, how to build a relationship, how to actually engage with people. We'll talk about that another time. What I want to talk about is the methodology, because you could be the best person in this room or in Adelaide at forming relationships with people, but if you don't know what you want to do with them, you're probably not going to be able to make the most out of networking. So that begs the question, what actually is networking? So for me, I started my life as a creative in an advertising agency when I was in my 20s and early 30s. And I always used to think it was the cool kids who went out and did the networking, because I'd watch them go out to their events and then I'd see them come back a lot more loudly and more excitedly, probably because they were plied with alcohol. Once I got into networking, I worked that out pretty quick. But they would always talk excitedly about the connections that they'd made with people and the opportunities. And I thought to myself as a graphic designer that if I want to progress my career, I got to do this. And eventually I started getting asked along to networking events. And I watched my managing director, my creative director, and others like an absolute hawk. So we'd go to the event and we'd go to the bar and I'd watch them talk for hours about seemingly nothing with people, just relationship stuff. And then they'd eventually get into this opportunity mode, right? And I thought, okay, that's how you do it. So then I went to some events and started trying that out with varying levels of success. And most people used to say, mate, you're just too damn excited. And if you know me, you know that that's kind of what I was struggling with, my ADHD, I guess. But I watched that, and then eventually I started a business and I started to get employees, and I learned a different aspect to networking. I realized that, my gosh, my job is not any longer being a creative, it's running a business. And I was lucky enough to have CEOs. So I would watch I had these CEOs that we worked with and in the group, and I would get together with these guys and they loved telling me about what I could do with my business, right? How I could fix staff problems, which accountant I should use, all these kind of things. And they actually became my board of directors. Now, they didn't know they were on my board. All they knew is that they were having a coffee with me about once a month. And I was just eating everything they said. And I realized, man, networking is way more than just selling. It's about learning and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And then there came a time where I realized if I'm not selling, we're all going to be out of business soon. So I thought, you know what? I got to learn how to do this networking thing as well as I can. And so I went and read books like, good old Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's another book I read called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, a whole heap of books on running meetings. I listened to podcasts galore and I gleaned lots of little bits, but I didn't quite get to what I wanted, which was, what's the structure for this thing? How do I do this thing? How do I make it work? I'm just kind of doing all the tactical things that I'm reading in these books. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to have to learn this myself. So I started interviewing a whole heap of business professionals. Some are in this room. I interviewed people from overseas via Zoom. I interviewed people who were moderately successful, very successful. And I had a question set where I asked them, how did you learn how to network? How did you actually find out about this? What would you tell your 20-year-old self now that you're a bit older? What would be the biggest piece of advice you'd give yourself about networking? And went through a whole raft of questions. Anyway, what I actually came to was what I saw as, from these people, a definition for networking. It's the act of finding and developing mutually beneficial business relationships. What's really important about that is it's the act. It's active. It's actually making a decision. It's being proactive about it, like Tony over there, wherever he is, who's got himself a plan, and the gentleman in the back corner who's moved. It's actually being intentional about what you do. And of course, finding and developing relationships, mutually beneficial relationships, which means it's not just what's in it for me, it's what can I do for the other person as well. And they're business relationships. They might not be people you hang out with socially, but they are definitely people that you align with from a business sense. But that wasn't the whole story, right? Because in doing these interviews, there were certain people in there that had a very clear aspect that effective networking was more than that. And I came to the conclusion they were right. And we have to add a couple of words to this definition to cover that. And the two words, well, phrases, career long and that help us achieve our purpose. So the whole thing becomes networking, or effective networking is the act of finding and developing mutually beneficial, career-long business relationships that help us achieve our purpose. Why is career long so important? It means if I go with that thinking in my mind, I'm going to talk very differently to people. I'm not going to just be transactional. I'm going to want to get to know Elizabeth Elliott and find out what makes her tick, because if it's career long, I want to know she's got the same values I have. She's going in the same direction I am, that we can help each other, not just me take from her. And achieving our purpose. And look, when you think about that career long thing too, think about CEOs and execs who go to another job. They take their A team with them, right? It's a career long thing. When you're working with someone that you build a great relationship in a company and they move to another company, often you get another client because you've built a relationship that's beyond their current posting. Anyway, that drives us on to defining our purpose. And that's what I really want tonight to be about. I had a bit of an argument with a couple of people earlier. We were talking about what is purpose. Now, I want to suggest that after we finish this talk that, probably 90% of you had your hand up and said, you know what your purpose is for networking. I would encourage you to ask each other, what is your purpose for networking? Why do you do it? And just find out what people think, because it'll help you in thinking about your own purpose. But look, I'm going to give you some examples because I have some distinct ideas. So examples could be career growth, business development, industry positioning, learning and development, launch your own startup, marketing intelligence, and you can go on and on and on. Purpose usually lines up with what you want to do with your career. So if you're in any exec groups, you'll have a 3 to 10 year plan about what you want to do with your professional life, right? And if you know what you want to do with your professional life, this doesn't have to be like a vision statement for a business. It's pretty damn simple. And I'll be really personal here. This is my vision statement, or why I network. I network because I want a pipeline of work. I don't want to go hungry. I want to surround myself with people who can help with that. So I'll surround myself with business development managers, CEOs, executives, people in the industries that I want to work with, businesses that I work with even, or want to work with even if I'm not working with them, and so forth. And I want to build a community to transition into my next career move, because you know why we do business builders? Because I want to set up a network where I actually want to be a part of it. This is the kind of networking event I want to go to. But the reason I want to build community is because I see myself as, I'm coaching businesses now, I see that continuing to grow. So I want to build a community where we peer-to-peer coach each other, right? Because that's where you learn the most. Remember those CEOs that taught me way back in the day? And they were the most valuable conversations and connections I had. I thought they were my clients. They were actually my teachers. So that was fantastic. So again, I want you to think about what's your purpose for networking tonight and probably in the coming weeks. But once you define your purpose, then we go on to, now I can make a plan. I got my thinking correct. I know that I want to build mutually beneficial career-long business relationships. So I need to make a plan. And if you want to make a plan, you need a simple framework. And the framework that Ron and I talk about a lot is Dunbar's number. Now, I'm not going to go into this because this ain't a 3-hour masterclass, but Robin Dunbar basically put a bit of research forward that said you can really only maintain meaningful relationships with about a maximum of 150 people. And within that 150 people, there's different levels of connectedness. So we call Dunbar's numbers our networking circles. The networking circles are based on Dunbar's number, right? On the outer, you've got about 150 people in your total network. Now, on the outer, you're going to have people who we call the engaged network. Now, the engaged network is where I'll ring someone up and they'll answer the phone and they'll talk with me. That's the biggest key, that someone is key in your network that they will actually talk to you when you call or get back to you. You might have a coffee with them. You might talk about business things. You probably see those people about, once every 3 months or so forth. You get into the next level, the active group. These are the people you're going to be dealing with most of the time. You're probably going to be doing business things together, but you get the idea. Then you've got your close group. These are the people that you're always talking with. And then within that close group, you're going to have your core. Now, these are your confidants. These are the people that will stick by you through thick and thin, and you already probably know who they are. I've got 4, not 5. This is a general kind of thing. But once you've got the framework, you go, well, now I can start to build a plan. So the first step is map your network. And I do it on a CRM. You can do it on a spreadsheet. Now, if you do it on a spreadsheet, you just use those kind of tabs. So we'll have a page for core, we'll have a page for close, active, engaged. You get the picture. But basically, when you map your network, the really good thing is, I don't care who you are, your network's bigger than you think it is. You start with your family and friends. I got an uncle that's amazing with business, and he's always been a great mentor for me. And I've got accountants in the group. I've got all sorts of people in that group. Then there's family and friends, colleagues, really the people at the place where you work. They're a really good opportunity to be part of your network. Clubs and groups, business contacts, schools, and then you just work out where they are. I bet you'll be all of you, if I asked you, would be able to tell you who's in that core group straight away. With me, I'm pretty good with the 50. I need to work on the outside 150, the bigger group, because I got holes there. So that's where I need to work on my network. Once you've mapped your network and you understand where people fit, you find the gaps. So that comes back to our purpose, right? It's not rocket science. I need to be, like I said earlier, building a pipeline of work. So for me, I need to surround myself with CEOs and people who are connected with business leaders and so forth, and BD people and all of those kind of people. So I look through my list and go, how many of them do I have? Not enough? It's a gap. And so forth. You get the picture, right? So, and then you just look in each group and you go, have I got enough people? Now, you don't need to fill this whole thing. Remember what I said? This is about as many meaningful relationships as Ron says, it's a neuroscience fact, Brent, and it's very difficult to have relationships beyond this that are meaningful. I'm like, yes, I agree with you, Ron. So that's the first 2 steps. The next one is the most important. Nurture the relationships you've already got. Because I tell you that core network that you've got will be your source of everything. How many people get work from referrals? Most of us, or contacts in the industry who know us. If you want to find people that are not yet in your network, the best place to start was people who already know you, because they know you and they know the other person. And if they introduce you, you're more likely to have a solid connection. Come to networking events. As much as networking events are supposed to be great, you're starting from scratch. It's like being on Tinder. Boom, throw that out the window. Get your friends to help you. Anyway, the most important thing with this is to schedule time to build your relationships, right? If you talk to everyone on this, if you talked with 5 minutes, for 5 minutes with everyone in this network, I think it's 3 days. Like, who's got 3 days in a month? Not me. So you set up a cadence. Clearly, you talk to the core people more than anyone. You probably don't need to set up a cadence for them at all because you're just doing it naturally. But the others, you might, in your list, you just keep your list of people and you have, when's the last time I contacted them? When do I need to contact them next? Simple as that, right? So you set up a cadence, calendar days. I know that people I interviewed, most of them were saying we will map out 1 hour a day where I talk to people in my network from 9 to 10. That's when I call people because it's big. 4 people get too busy. Plan get-togethers. Like if you've got that outer circle, get 20 people together for dinner. Talk, do that. That's a real quick way of keeping in contact with people. There's many ways, but we won't go into too many details about that. You get the picture. The next one is literally fill the gaps. Now, I've already mentioned how you do that, but this is where you plan. This is the tactics part, right, which we're doing now. You're in a group of people, good people. Meet people, get to know them. Networking events are great, but I reckon consider things like courses, training, clubs, groups. Now, why courses? Do you want to get to know CEOs and other people? Go do the AICD Company Directors course. If you can't make relationships with a bunch of CEOs and industry directors, I don't know where you will, because you're spending 3 to 6 months learning with them. And that is the best kind of networking because it's effortless, because you're all doing something together. So think outside the box. It's not just networking events. Oh, and LinkedIn Digital, all that kind of stuff, that's good too. It all works. All of these things work. But just think about how you fill the gaps. As I said, use your network that you already have. So I'm going to start to wrap up now. Networking is more than about building, going to events and all these things. It's about building a tribe, right? Your tribe will be with you through thick and thin. You'll be with them through thick and thin. It's about finding really meaningful connections and who are my running mates? Who are the people that can help me the most and I can help them the most, right? So I'm going to leave you with a few things. Firstly, some principles to help with tactics. And we can speak about tactics another day, or you can book me to come and do a masterclass with you and we can go into that in infinite detail. But most of you guys know what you're doing. So effective networking is about building genuine relationships. I don't need to say too much more about that, but genuine relationships will get you the furthest. Who's ever heard of the know, like, trust continuum? Yeah, particularly people in digital world should, but it's really obvious. If you don't know someone, you're never going to have them in your network. You're not going to be able to work with them. As soon as you meet someone, you start to get a vibe. I like the way this person talks. I like the way they interact with other people. They're cool. I like what they're about in business. I think I want to get to know this person more. Then you start going to, you see them again and again and again. You come to Business Builders 6 times and you talk to someone like Dan here, and Dan says, hey, that guy Michael's actually really cool. Like, I've done some work with him and so forth. And I go, far out. This guy really, what he says he can do. So I get to trust. And on the other side of trust is faith. That's where we start working with people. That's where we start getting active in our networks. Next principle, we got one more after this, is give first, right? Giving is the most important thing. If you start giving to people, you're earning credits in the goodwill bank. And the principle I use is give, ask, right? You lose your job and you start going out and going, shoosh, I need to build my network really quickly. You're on the ask mode. If you wait till you need to ask, it's going to be not effective. I've had 4 phone calls in the last month, not naming any names, not showing any shade, because I did the same thing about a year ago. And a couple of people said to me, my role's changed. I'm now in BD. Heck, I've neglected my network. This is really hard. Gotcha. I understand. Another person, I've had to leave my job. I need to get something happening. This is really hard. I've neglected my network. So, the principle is dig your well before you're thirsty. In other words, build your network before you need it. If you give, then when it's time for you to ask, people are going to be right. Let's gather around, Elizabeth. Let's get stuff happening, et cetera, et cetera. It's your tribe, right? And so 4 important principles, key takeaways. We already know this, right? Take a photo of that or go to, as Ron said, our YouTube channel. I think the episode's called Busting the 13 Biggest Myths About Networking. And we go into explicit detail about this. The next takeaway is define your purpose. Like, after this event, seriously, come and ask me. Oh, you already know what my purpose is. Just ignore me altogether and talk to other people. Use Dunbar's number. It's a good framework for setting up your network. Your plan doesn't have to be hard. I think I was talking with Tony who said, I think I'm repeating myself, but isn't it creepy that you're listing all these people and thinking about them? Well, no. I put them on the spreadsheet so I keep them top of mind. Imagine if we did that in our personal relationships, right? If you actually gave that kind of time to your friendships and so forth, it would be really good. Okay. And last one is, again, backing up that relationship thing. Create a plan that includes real relationship building, not just, hey, I want to get some work out of you. Find out what Dan's really all about. Find out what makes him tick, because he might be able to connect you with a whole bunch of people. He might be able to teach you things you don't know. He might be able to give you insights you didn't have before. You don't know unless you scratch the surface and get to know someone. So, a quick reflection. What action are you going to take from this? I went through this mega quick. This usually takes a long time. What action are you going to take to improve your networking? For me, I've told you what it is. I've just remapped my network recently and realized that outer group I've really neglected. I've basically got the inner groups all working pretty well, so I need to spend a bit of time getting to know new people. That's what I got to do. Anyone else? Anything flash in your brains that you think man, I should be doing this. And it's okay if no one has anything to say, but does anyone have anything that's kind of sparked?
I think for me, it's probably the follow-up. So when you have networking events and you've spent a great deal of time with people in courses and things like that, actually making the time to check in, like the cadence thing that you said, like it's all very well and good to meet people, but then if you don't sort of catch up with them later and just to check in, then it sort of, I guess, dissolves your relationship.
Yeah, it evaporates. And that's why you list it down, not to be creepy and weird, but just because I don't know how much your brain can fit, but mine's about a teaspoon. So I write everything down. All good. So if you want more of this, you can book a masterclass with me. It's going to cost you some money. You're going to love it. Or you can go to our YouTube channel, Business Builders, and we've got a whole bunch of stuff online about what we're talking about. In 2 weeks, I'll put up on the Adaptco blog, that's my website, adaptco.com.au. I'll put a blog up with a spreadsheet that I think is kind of a good base for mapping your network. And other than that, speak to people about what your purpose is for networking.
Thank you very much, Brenton. Wow. In 25 minutes, as he promised. No, you don't. No, you don't. Stop that. Stop that. In 25 minutes, he's given you a quick overview of the concepts associated with networking that you can use.
So that was a lot of information and a lot of fun, and I hope you got something out of it. What were the key moments for you, Ron?
Well, I like the idea of being clear about your purpose. I think that's incredibly important because it does drive the way you go into networking. That little vignette that you had, give, ask, I think is the critical component because it drives your mindset.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I actually had someone reach out to me specifically about, which was one of the principles I shared, which was about give, ask, and they asked me how to do it. And sometimes it's just simply asking people how you can help. So when you have a meeting, just being able to say, how can I help you? And oftentimes people won't know how you can help, but just the fact of asking the question that you're thinking about them before you're thinking about what you can get out of them is enough to make you stick in people's minds.
Now, you probably haven't seen that presentation that you gave yourself. What are the things in looking at that you got out after having seen yourself again?
The key thing for me really is business networking, successful business networking is about building genuine relationships. And the fact that it's your network that already exists now, and every one of us has got a network of some description, that will be your biggest tool to build your network and find other people. Because it's like I said in that presentation, it's a bit like dating, right? People who already know you and know other people will know who you're going to get along with the best. So if you say, I've got a gap here, or I got to meet someone like this, it's the people who know you who might say, well, you should meet this person because I know you two will get on. I know that they've got the skill set or the connections that you need. And if people in our network make those connections, they're more likely to work. That's basically the thing that sticks out to me the most. Your network is your biggest asset and your biggest tool to grow your network.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that came across for me is Dunbar's number and that framework. It provides a great framework for people to quantify the circles and the depth of the relationships they have within their network. So it's not absolute, but it's a good indicator that people can use.
Look, it's a good framework. I believe in it because it works. But you can use any kind of framework if you can find other frameworks that work. But I think this is a good one, a general framework that helps us understand our network and plan effectively.
And it is research-based.
Now, if you've really enjoyed what we've done today and you want to get more into networking, and we will get more into the tactics as we go along, we've got several episodes in our YouTube library that are all about networking. The first one was about busting the 13 biggest myths about networking, and that goes into vast detail about the definition of networking that we shared during the masterclass, and then we've got how to map your network. We've actually got an episode on how to find your purpose, and we're going to do episodes moving forward on actually how to practically plan, and then, of course, the thing that everyone talks about, what tactics do we use when we've got our thinking right. But the thing that we want to get across to you here at Business Builders is it's the thinking that drives your actions that will determine your success.
And so look forward to those episodes coming in Business Builders.
So again, if you want more, please hit subscribe and we will see you in the next episode.
So keep on building.